everyone, today I have some pretty cool news for you. In 2016, researchers discovered a bacterium that had naturally evolved to break down a certain grade of plastic. Now this was pretty exciting because it opened a door for a potential biological method of breaking down and recycling plastic. The study that I want to talk about today was made possible by that discovery 2 years ago, and it was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. When researchers were studying the enzyme responsible for breaking down plastic, they fiddled with it, and they changed this and they changed that part of it to see what would happen. But as they tinkered with it, they actually made the molecule more effective. They made it a more effective decomposer of plastic. Specifically, it could degrade and was now even better at degrading PET, or polyethylene terephthalate, which is a kind of plastic that's typically found in stuff like soda bottles. Professor John McGeehan from the University of Portsmouth in the UK was one of the members of the international team of researchers who studied the plastic-degrading enzyme. He said, and I quote, "What we are hoping to do is use this enzyme to turn this plastic back into its original components, so we can literally recycle it back to plastic. It means we won't need to dig up any more oil, and fundamentally, it should reduce the amount of plastic in the environment." Unquote. Drifting into the economic angle of the discovery, McGeehan said, and I quote, "You're always up against the fact that oil is cheap, so virgin PET is cheap. It is so easy for manufacturers to generate more of that stuff, rather than even try to recycle. But I believe there is a public driver here. Perception is changing so much that companies are starting to look at how they can properly recycle these." Unquote. McGeehan also spoke about the improvements made to the enzyme, and what that means for future research. He said, and I quote, "It is a modest improvement, 20% better, but that is not the point. It's incredible because it tells us that the enzyme is not yet optimized. It gives us scope to use all the technology used in other enzyme development for years and years and make a super fast enzyme." Unquote. The discovery of a plastic-degrading enzyme is particularly awesome because enzymes are pretty easy to use, and they can be applied on an industrial scale. One suggestion is to implant the genes for this enzyme into an extremophile bacteria, one that can endure extreme heat, or at least the heat that it takes to melt plastic. So then if you create a facility with little burn chambers or something, and you have this combination of heat plus exposure to a metabolically active microbe that can survive that heat, you can potentially create a very effective method of breaking down and recycling the plastic. Another suggestion is to industrially produce the enzyme, just make huge quantities of it, and then mix it in a solution that gets sprayed over the plastic pollution in the ocean or in the environment. When the enzymes naturally decay, they'll just fall apart into harmless amino acids, so they won't be polluting or damaging the environment. At least not any more than the plastic is. While these kinds of advances are always exciting, we really need to be mindful of unintended consequences. Plastic pollution is dangerous because animals can't digest it, and it can accumulate in their bodies and ultimately kill them. If we use a microbe or an enzyme to break down plastic, how much of that exactly is getting broken down? Is it being fully dissolved? Or are we just making it even finer plastic dust that's even better at picking up toxins and metals and bringing them into the bodies of the animals that ingest them? This was a problem brought up with earlier methods for chemically decomposing plastic. The argument goes, well, you just end up with even smaller bits of plastic. You're just creating more microplastics that can get into smaller areas and are harder to clean up, so what's the point? Maybe it's better to just clean up the large pieces of plastic we have now and try and avoid future pollution. There's arguments on both sides of this issue, but it's important to keep all of this in mind. Hopefully, these concerns will be studied, and these problems can ultimately be solved, and I have confidence that sometime in the future they will be. But if we don't take these concerns seriously, this could potentially compound the problem. Instead of 1 billion large pieces of plastic, we could end up with 100 trillion tiny pieces of plastic.